What if part of the phenomenon we are witnessing related to UAPs is really about something that has been with us all the time and not something from outer space? The idea of an ultraterrestrial is not new, but is starting to gain ground in the public arena as an acceptable thought experiment to consider for the source of UFOs. And there are several angles to look at. I'm going to bring up some ideas that have been bantered about, not necessarily as an endorsement of those theories, but only to help provide context to what the broader discussions include to make sure that you're aware of what others are talking about when they look at this confounding tapestry. The core idea of an ultra-terrestrial civilization is one that is possibly more advanced and predates our modern civilization, but they exist right here on Earth. This is a hypothesis introduced and discussed publicly by folks like Lue Elizondo, the frontman for ATIP, the surface point of the Pentagon's large UAP investigative iceberg. It is possible that the ultra-terrestrial civilization lives either mostly underground, in the Earth, or maybe beneath the ocean. They may possess advanced technology like the flying craft witnessed in the air and underwater moving at blistering speeds, but they do not want to interact directly with humans en masse. Now, it's worth considering before we go any further that we're just learning now that Homo sapiens were likely not the first to control fire for cooking, light, and heat, a pillar of our evolutionary history, and that another species may have beat us to it by hundreds of thousands of years, and they were doing it deep underground. It shows just how little we know about ourselves even today, and so dismissing the idea there could be something else alongside us that we've missed up until this point, well, it's maybe worth a second look. Ultraterrestrials living beneath the surface of the water hypothesis is interesting, considering the vast majority of all UAP encounters have happened on water, on shore, or near large bodies of water like oceans and lakes. This is a map representing data from Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, and the National UFO Reporting Center. It displays geographic locations of approximately 90,000 UFO reports since 1905 until about 2012. The larger the green area, the more concentrated the sightings were. As you can see, the majority is around water, even the Great Lakes. Now, the large green dots over land, well, most just happen to correspond with the locations of large military installations like Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. Well, there is no denying that cultures for thousands of years have told similar tales of human-like figures helping guide and lead humanity to various evolutionary successes. From the Middle East to the Americas and elsewhere, the iconography of so many distant cultures utilizing the same figures for similar legends is painfully obvious. So, if that is the case, if something has been around that long, and is part of the UAP phenomenon that we are seeing today, it makes sense, from an efficiency standpoint, that they were always here with us, not coming from distant stars for thousands of years to visit us with only minimal and passive interaction. So the behavior model would seem odd. If they have their own planet, but remain far, far away and on the periphery of our existence. So why? To what goal? The concept of space alien is the kind of core bias that shapes almost every aspect of the UAP issue and its related phenomenon, from ridicule to rational, which makes it nearly impossible to see the camouflaged reality that they could possibly be coming from Earth. If an ultra-terrestrial group existed and interacted with humans, one of the best ways, as Dr. Hal Puthoff points out, to keep themselves hidden is to propagate the idea they come from space. But why? Well, think about it from a human's point of view. Dr. Puthoff wrote a paper regarding ultraterrestrials, and one of the most interesting points he raised was that if there was another group alongside us, directly revealing themselves could put them in harm's way, or put them at risk from having cultural, social, or religious pillars or institutions challenged or undermined by the mixing of our two societies. Not to mention the biological risks from pathogens and viruses that could wipe them out, akin to smallpox from European explorers who arrived in the New World. They might also possess some technological advancements, but could be an empire in decline. From the Spartans to mighty Rome, Mongol legions to Mesopotamians, the great dynasties all eventually fade away, like today's present-day British Empire. So, engaging in a war might not provide the harmonious ways to live alongside each other that's necessary, especially if a win isn't assured. But if one neighbor is behaving in a way that threatens the survival of the other, at what point is intervention inevitable? If there was something like a shadow biosphere here on Earth that does exist alongside us, a so-called message from aliens might have greater meaning if they were coming from around the corner, not a distant star system. From the aerial school encounter in Zimbabwe in the 1990s to a near-identical encounter by school children in Australia, the alleged telepathic messages the children received from these strange beings they encountered was to protect the environment and end war, a very important point in the nuclear age. Atomic weapons and environmental destruction would be two of the greatest existential threats to any group that lives alongside us. When you look at the sudden surge of UFO encounters in the 20th century, it began in the 1930s when Germany began toying with its plans for nuclear and other alternative weapons, and then really began surging after the detonation of the first atomic bombs. Lue Elizondo and many others going back decades have said that UFOs have taken nuclear weapons and other assets offline. Long-range intercontinental ballistic missile operators, both Soviet and American, have both reported that UFOs have turned their missiles on and off. It seems the threat from nuclear weapons was one of the major catalysts for the post-war surge in UFO sightings. It's thought that perhaps the triggering of a nuclear blast can impact other realms across the electromagnetic spectrum, places we can't see. And if we share a common biosphere, or even one that exists in a shadow biosphere, it is possible that the damage that we do has a rippling effect into their world, not to mention the amount of environmental damage and pollution that we leave strewn about the planet. So why not just tell us to clean up our act? Well, maybe they've got other plans. One puzzling aspect of this phenomenon is how it might be related to alleged human abductions and cattle mutilations, because there are troubling facts that demands more attention. Brandon Fugel, a very wealthy businessman and owner of Skinwalker Ranch, who is one of the more public figures in the UFO community, has repeatedly called attention to the issue of cattle mutilations. In a tweet, he referred to it as the greatest unsolved serial crime spree in history, with more than 10,000 documented cases of cattle mutilations in America since just the turn of the century, with no arrests, no witnesses, and no answers. Some of these animals have been butchered in a way that defies logic, from cauterized wounds to having the blood or sex organs removed without leaving scars, to huge mess, large incisions, or even evidence of microsurgery. Now, there are reports that some of these mutilations may have been done by the U.S. military as a possible covert disinformation campaign, but the sheer volume and types of injuries incurred suggests that is likely not the whole answer. And it would also be very illegal, considering just one quality bovine can cost thousands of dollars. That's a big hit to a farmer's wallet. So there is a whole host of crimes being committed if that is the case. So then why is it being done? And what about the large number of documented human abductions? Even Pentagon files released to the UK tabloid The Sun documents many strange cases of alleged encounters, some going back to the 1800s, decades before the invention of airplanes and airships. So why? Why the interest in humans and animals? Well, maybe we need to take a closer look inside ourselves for the answer. If we take what folks like Lue Elizondo and the CIA's John Ramirez have said about the possibility humans may have been genetically manipulated by outside entities, perhaps it was done by a group or groups that was already here. Again, it makes sense if you're going to alter a species, doing it where you can keep a close eye, rather than have to travel potentially thousands of light years to keep tabs on your experimental human terrarium. That doesn't seem very practical, especially if it's being done for a specific purpose, not research. So, what if Ramirez is correct and humans are hybrids? What purpose could we serve? Well, if we share genetic material, perhaps our blood, adrenal cortex, or even our DNA, it may offer them something they need, we have, that they can't produce themselves. If they are a species on decline, but with advanced technology beyond ours, maybe they're rebuilding themselves using whatever help we can provide. Like humans using chimps in a lab or pigs to grow organs, maybe there is a possible symbiosis here we should be paying closer attention to. That could be the link to the rumbles and theoretical thought experiments that folks like Elizondo have thrown out when it comes to humans being called containers, as he puts it, are these little nuggets of truth. At one point, one of the folks I've interviewed on this subject suggested that modern humans may be the third iteration of whatever genetic experiments have gone on in the past to get it right, or at least to this point, which conjecture from conspiracy theorists may suggest that's why humanity has had a few wipeouts, like a clearing of an Etch-a-Sketch, yet every time we seem to bounce back stronger. Which could also be why there hasn't been a direct conflict between us and them, at least not yet, because humans have never had the capability to do any damage, right up until the nuclear age. I'm Sean. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and give it a like if you enjoy the content. I've got great new material coming all the time.